Howdy folks, I'm Boone. On today's episode of Monday Maps, I'm going to show you how to take a Google map and turn it into a 3D terrain map using the Terrain Builder Pro script for Adobe After Effects. So I'm going to take you step by step on the process of how to create this map of Iceland. We're going to look at some of the pros and cons of this particular script, and it's going to be fun. So the first thing I need to do is get my project set up. You get a few different assets here, but it is a template project that comes with the script file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch this project file. Now the main part of this project is the powerful script file that comes with this, which is going to launch our panel. So to do that, I'm going to go to File, Scripts, Run Script File. So I'm going to navigate to the script file here, and once I double click on that, that's going to launch the Terrain Builder script panel here. Now there's a bunch of different stuff you can do with this particular script, but for reasons that you'll see coming up, I wasn't able to test out everything. So this particular tutorial is just going to focus on showing you how to actually get the terrain maps, but there's a ton of stuff you can do with this script, including importing GPX files, exporting to Cinema 4D, placing track points and paths. But for this, I'm just going to show you how to convert the Google map to the terrain map, and in future tutorials, I'm going to be focusing on some of these other elements. For the next step, I need to get the color map of Iceland. So to do that, I'm going to be getting it from Google Maps, and I can launch Google Maps directly from my panel here. If you go to the main tab down at the bottom, it says right here, Find Real Maps, and there's a button that says Open Google Maps. If I click on that, so now I'm just going to search for Iceland, and then I'm going to zoom in here and get it nice in the center here. Okay, so I've navigated to the map. Now, essentially, I'm going to be taking a screenshot of this, but I want a clean screenshot. I don't want any labels on this. I don't want anything. I just want a satellite view. So to do that, I'm going to go over to the menu here to the left, and then right up here, you can see the different views. So I'm going to switch this to satellite, and that's going to give us this nice satellite view, but I still have all these labels. So to turn those off, I'm going to click right here, and now with satellite selected, it says labels on. If I just click that, it's going to turn the labels off, and now I've got this clean map. I'm going to hide my menu, and now I'm going to try to just fit this as nicely as possible. I'm basically going to take a full screenshot and then crop it inside of Photoshop. So I'm going to position this, and now I'm going to go ahead and take a screenshot. Okay, now since I'm using my laptop here, I have a double screen thing, so it's actually screenshotting my second screen here. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to call this Iceland Color. So now I've got my color map, but the way Terrain Builder works is it uses a height map to displace your image and give you that terrain. So what I need now is to actually find the height map of this map. And one important thing is that I don't want to move this map around. Once I get my screenshot, I don't want to grab in Google Maps and move things around, because I'm going to be taking a screenshot of my height map next, and I want those two to line up perfectly, so I'm not going to touch that. So to grab the height map, I'm going to open my menu back up, and I'm going to switch back to map. And I'm going to close this, and now what I'm going to do is copy the URL here. And with this Google Map URL copied, I can go back to my Terrain Builder panel in Adobe After Effects, and right down here in Find Real Maps, I'm going to paste the link, and I'm going to click on this button that says Get the Height Map. Now it's going to take me back to Google Chrome here, and I have this black and white image, which is my height map, and I have some controls here if I wanted to, like include the ocean data or make a little bit of tweaks here, but I just want this particular image right here. And what this is going to do is essentially Terrain Builder is going to take the luminance values and assign them to the height or the elevation. So white is going to be higher elevations, and black is going to be sea level. And you can see the gradients or the gradations in between. Those different gray values are going to make them different levels of elevation. So I'm going to close the controls here, and again, I haven't moved the map, so I can take another screenshot and everything will be perfectly lined up. So I'm going to go back here, screenshot again, and now I'll save this one out, and I'll call it Iceland height. Okay, so I've got my color map, I've got my height map. Now I'm going to bring both of those in Photoshop and essentially just crop them out how I want them to look perfectly. So I'll rename this color map. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab this height map and simply drag it and drop it over top here, and now you can see they're perfectly aligned. But what I want to do now is crop it, so I'm going to hit the C key. Now if I needed to, I could come in here and do some touch-up work, but I'm just going to crop it in a way where I don't have to do any of that. Alright, so now I've got the color map on one layer, the height map on the other, but as you can see I have some text over here. I'm going to quickly grab that layer and the patch tool, and I'll just remove that. And now I'll export this out. Now I'm going to call this Iceland height final. And then I'll export this one out as well. Iceland color final. All right, now I'm going to close Photoshop. This is all good. So now my maps are prepped. I'm going to go back into Adobe After Effects and we're going to use the terrain builder panel to put all this stuff together. I'm still in the main tab, so I want to bring those maps in that I just made. So first, I'm going to click on color map. And in the project file here, there's actually a bunch of map examples. So if you want to just test some out, they have a bunch of different options here. But I'm going to go back to mine, my Iceland maps. And I'm going to first grab this color map, Iceland color final. As you can see here, it places it here, and for some reason it's upside down. Not entirely sure why that is. And I'll grab that height map, and I'm going to bring that in. Now you can see these are both in the project here. It's going to apply them, but it's not going to extrude them just yet. And again, there's a bunch of other options, but let's just focus on the terrain for right now. Next, I'm going to change this to a 4K sequence, so I'll make it 3840 by 2160 to 24 frames per second, 8 seconds. And I'll click apply. And that's going to change all of my comps and pre-comps here. So I'm going to click on the terrain tab. So what I need to do is simply click on 3D map, and now watch what happens. You're going to see this, and this is what leads to the weakness of this particular tool. That this is very system intensive. So you have something called shading, which you go over here to the shading tab, and you look over here, and there's terrain shadow. And it says shadow mode greatly reduces performance. Use this only if necessary. So when this is on, which it should be on, it just totally bogs down your system. And I'm allowing this to update in real time here. You can see this is still going. So what you need to do is you need to look at this once, look at your 3D map, and then you can change the resolution and height to meet what you want it to look like. And then you just flip it over into edit mode. So when you're doing your animation or you're doing any changes, edit mode is simply going to put that map in 2D. So it's going to make it easy to work with. It's not going to make it so intensive on your system. And I've read the comments on this particular product, and the creator says this is a limitation of After Effects. So there's really no way around it. Well, hopefully, maybe in some future updates to After Effects, it will make this the performance of this better. But as of right now, this is the main con of this particular plugin. You can get beautiful 3D maps, but you're going to have to wait for them. And you're going to see in a moment how long these take to render. Okay, so that took what? That took like between 30 seconds and a minute just to do that. Now, if we look here, it's looking a little too much right now. Like these are kind of shooting up. I've been to Iceland, and you definitely don't have this over here. I don't think it's that high. So I'm going to grab the height, and I'm going to switch this to 50 and click apply. And that's going to take perhaps another 30 seconds to a minute to update this. I'm not entirely sure. Now, while this is updating, I just want to say I work a lot with another plugin called, or another tool for After Effects called GeoLayers, and I do some client work with that. And the main con of this being the render times take so long and it's so system intensive. Basically doing client work with a tool like this would be extremely frustrating because I was making a map just the other day, and the number of revisions that I had to do and quickly render out like little changes, like change the color to one thing, and then or move a marker or add a path or change the path line. Just doing that, I have to export out multiple versions, and trying to do that in here with Terrain Builder would be a nightmare. So I think if you're just making a map and it's really short, and you're going to be using it for something personal, would be great. This is a great tool, and if you have the power and you have the time to wait, so if you want to let this render overnight, then it could be a cool tool for you. Okay, I've been waiting around for like 2 minutes, so to actually get this to function, I had to turn the terrain shadow off to get this to update. So what I'll do is I can make all my adjustments, and then at the last moment turn on terrain shadow before I render out. I'm going to zoom out here, and it's looking better if I turn the height down to 50. It's a little bit more subtle and not sticking out too far. This still looks very unrealistic. I don't remember something that high. All right, so I'm going to set the rotation to 180 just to flip this back around, and I think we're good there. Not really sure why it comes in like that. So since I'm working on an island here, you can't really see too much of the slice controls. If I was working on something like the Grand Canyon, you'd see that, and then you'd be able to make adjustments to the slice control. But I wanted to work on something that's right at sea level here. But you can change the colors and all the look of that. And once again, if I want to edit this quickly, I can click on edit mode, and now watch. This is going to takes out the terrain and allows me to make my animations. Now I can go over to scene. I can apply water if I want and set the height of that water. I can turn the back of this off, just make it live in some space environment, but I like this, so I'm going to leave it. Now in elements, once again, there's a bunch of different elements that you can apply here, and this project comes with a bunch of preset elements that are just plug and play, and you can place them. Now it's not like with GeoLayers where you can use geospatial data to specifically place things. This is more of like you have to manually place it, so that's a huge negative in my opinion. So here are your different camera default setups. I'm going to set it to turntable camera. This is going to apply expressions to both the point of interest and the position, and that will have it just rotate based on the length of my comp. So 8 seconds it's going to do, if I set the turn count to 1, it's going to do a full rotation. So I'm going to apply that. And once again, if I try to do this with 3D mode on, my computer might catch on fire. So I can change the radius of the rotation, the height of the rotation. I can move the camera up and down, all kinds of different stuff. One really cool option is I can change the depth of field. So I can turn this on and make it give it a really shallow depth of field, fly that camera in or get the camera close and then really do some super specific looks. Now I'm going to flip it out of edit mode and I'm going to turn the terrain shadow back on. And I'm not going to make any adjustments here. We're just going to wait for it to update. Then I'm going to throw it in the Adobe Media Encoder, render this out as a 4K, and you're going to see how long it takes to render out. 8 seconds. So once again, this is the kind of thing, make a map, let it run overnight, you'll have your map in the morning. If you want to make any changes, give yourself a few days. Okay, so this has basically been rendering all day. It took over 10 hours to have this 8-second loop, and I was actually working on my computer pretty much throughout the day, and I paused it a few times, but this is very, as I said before, system intensive. I'm working on an Asus ZenBook Pro Duo. This has Intel i9 processor and an NVIDIA graphics card. I think it's the GeForce RTX 2060. This is another render I did a little while ago. This is Mont Blanc in Europe, and this took about 12 hours to render out. And this is a 1920 by 1080 clip. Now this is only if you want the highest quality, if you want to apply those terrain shadows. If you don't apply the terrain shadows, you're going to have a lot more versatility. So maybe if you want to test out a few looks, just render out like a second or two, turn the terrain shadow off. Maybe if you're just want to look at the animation, you can export this out as 2D and figure out your camera movements. Here's a really low res example of something that I rendered out. On the left, you'll see there's no terrain shadow applied. This took about 3 minutes to export. This is a 4-second animation. And on the right, I have the same animation with the terrain shadow applied. This took 1 hour and 30 minutes to render out. Now I'm not going to take you step by step through this part, but one other cool look I got was I took this map and I was able to isolate the country. I used I created an alpha matte or an alpha mask out of the height map, and I was able to use that to cut out the ocean and just isolate the country. And then you can go back here into the terrain builder panel and you can re-import this as a color map, and then it's just going to isolate that and give you a really cool look. And it actually took about 9 hours to render that as well. Here's what it looks like. I feel like I've seen these before. I feel like Johnny Harris from Vox on his personal channel, he did a couple maps of Hawaii that I feel like he might have used this plugin for it. So really pros and cons, all the features that this tool has at the price point is insanely good. You can do the GPX, so if you're using Strava or you're tracking your location with some kind of GPS device, you can import that in and kind of manually set it in. If you're working with Cinema 4D, it has a great Cinema 4D workflow. If you're placing these track points, there's all these pre-made animations. Again, I'm probably going to make another tutorial and give you a look at how that works. Another big pro of this tool is that it works with really older versions of Adobe After Effects. So if you're using like CS 6.6 or something like that. But I feel like if you're using an older version of After Effects like that, your machine might not be up to the task. And the one big main con of this is that it's so system intensive, and if you want to really look at the terrain shadows in 3D mode, it can just take forever. Okay, so there you have it. That's Terrain Builder Pro for Adobe After Effects. Again, I have an affiliate link down in the video description if you want to go check out some more information about this. I'm probably going to release another tutorial showing you a few more features because, as I mentioned before, it just took so long to render some of these out, so I didn't get a chance to really take a closer look at some of the other features like placing markers and putting paths in place. So I'm going to leave that for a later date when I get a chance to actually render those out as well. Okay, as always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you want to see more cool map tutorials like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. See you in the next one.